Welcome to a new episode of Elevate Your Path with past presidents of NIRSA. I'm Michael Brito with the Rec Track Committee, and today our guest is Tom Kirch. Tom, please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Tom Kirch. I'm the retired director at Oregon State University. Been retired for about 4 or 5 years. I have been involved with NIRSA for as long as I've been in the field, but I'm also enjoying my retirement.
Nice. Can't wait for that. How did you first get into campus rec, and what was your first year as a member?
Well, I had an unorthodox way into the profession. I started out to be an architect, and after a year found that wasn't going to work quite right. So I went into civil engineering and had a couple of years of that. But I found that wasn't really going to be that exciting for me. And so after I came out of the military, I went to the University of Oregon and got a degree in recreation and park planning. And I had worked in municipal recreation, summer playgrounds, all that kind of thing. And I really enjoyed the interaction of people. And so I thought, oh, this is something I would like to do. So I got my degree, which was also in park planning, which fell back into the civil engineering and the architecture. And I was very interested in development of facilities. So when I graduated, I had some opportunities. These, as you said, these processes take quite a while. After about 3 months, one day I got a call from the city of Seattle for a job, a supervisor's job, professional job. And I fortunately told them, I need to talk to my wife and we'll get back to you tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Later that day, I got a call from the University of Washington for a position in the recreational sports program. So I took that position, although it was less money and less opportunity for advancement. But there's something about the environment. I had no idea what recreational sports was, didn't have a graduate assistantship, but it made all the difference. And so I began as a sports club coordinator and then moved into some other positions at the University of Washington. What was interesting about that was that the University of Washington had this major recreation facility, the first in the West, very advanced in the development of collegiate recreation in the West Coast. And so I had all these experiences that I didn't realize were so unique and unusual for many people that were working in programming of campus recreation, but not the full facilities kind of thing. So I was very fortunate to fall into that situation.
Definitely a different path than most.
Right.
So since you've been involved, how has NIRSA changed since you've been a part of it? And then what excites you about NIRSA's future?
Well, I just figuring out, I think I've been involved since 1979. It was my first conference. Mm-hmm. So that might be is that 6 decades, parts of 6 decades or 7, whatever. So I've been involved a long time. Mm-hmm. So I've seen a lot of change. And the one thing that struck me as I worked in a number of positions at the University of Washington was this lack of opportunity for students to develop. At the time, students were hired to do something, check out a towel, check an ID, whatever. But I really felt like there was something more that was missing. And in part, it's why I left and I went to Oregon State University. Of course, it was a director's job, but the other part was that they understood this conversation about student development. And I remember in early conferences talking to professionals about professional development, and the comment often was, "Not what are you talking about? We deliver services, and this is who delivers it." And so that's so unlike who we are today, right? We're all about student development. So I've gone through this evolution through NIRSA and seen a lot of change, and now we're talking about health and well-being. Right. And that was not a part of the vocabulary, 10 years ago or 15 years ago. There's something about wellness maybe, but so I've seen that change. I've seen the environmental issues change. Mm-hmm. the way in which students are given opportunities has changed. And so, so what excites me is that this is a continual evolution. How do we best serve? How do we best promote what we do? How do we prepare students for the future? And so I'm really excited about the health and well-being and what that might look like, the integrated model, and how do we pull our colleagues together on a campus to help deliver the best we can to our students. And so that really excites me. And I've been in that conversation for a little while, but I see so much more of it going on now. I can't wait to see where that heads.
Right. The conversations are happening, and as you mentioned, the collaboration. Not just us; other people could be involved. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
So going to your NIRSA President days, before then, what experiences did you have personally, professionally, that made you feel qualified for the position? And then, what made you actually decide to go for it?
Well, I was involved in a variety of ways within NIRSA committee work, and I hosted a pre-con facilities conference, did state meetings, all of that. Interestingly, Oregon State is also the home of the national office. And actually, my predecessor to the director of recreational sports at Oregon State was Will Holsbury, who was the executive director of NIRSA. So he was doing two jobs and came to a point where he had to choose. And so he took the NIRSA full-time executive director's position, and I stepped in at Oregon State. So I had that interaction with the national office. I think it gave me insight and information. It didn't give me particularly any advantage. I mean, that didn't play into it. But Charlie Fisher was here, who was a past president. And I got to know a couple other people who were past presidents. So I sort of started to think about, okay, well, where could I impact NIRSA and collegiate recreation? I stood for vice president. In the old governance model, we had vice presidents of the 6 regions who sat on the board. And so I stood, actually the first time I was defeated, but the second time I was selected to serve on the board. And so that was a great opportunity for me to understand, well, what will happen, what happens at this level, and what this happens with this president's position. So I think it was about the first meeting that we had in person. We ended up with a long conversation about the entry fee for the sport club or soccer tournament for NIRSA was putting on. Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of time, and my feeling was, well, I'm not qualified to determine that fee, but on the other hand, it didn't seem like this really was the appropriate place for that conversation to happen. So as I served, I realized that what we needed to do is to move this board to a more strategic position, more strategic work, not what I might see as committee work. Okay. And so then I realized that, as I talked to colleagues, we realized that maybe this governance, which was something for the 70s, now we're into the 2000s, and it seems that it's obsolete. So I also recognize that making change takes time. Mm-hmm. And so somebody told me, as president, you can't do too much good and you can't do too much harm. I mean, only in 1 year. And so I realized that if we're going to make some, major change, it was going to take time. So because I was the VP for 2 years, I then stood for office immediately and was elected in the presidential track. And that allowed us to then move forward with this idea of developing a new model. And so I was able to set up a commission, a high-level commission of our best thinkers, and that moved the model to our association, who approved it in Charlotte, and I think it was 2009, I think. Wow. So yeah, so it's but making change requires mm-hmm. momentum, and it required people to be engaged and willing to carry that on. When I was out of position or of the position, it carried on. There's momentum to that. So that's sort of the reason I got involved. The other reason was that, where can I influence what was going on? And I felt that, being in conversations with a lot of people, that there was a lot that could be done with their association.
Definitely. So once you were president, what was something that surprised you about having that position?
Well, I think the surprise was the depth of the work.
Mhm.
Of course, we were looking at governance change, and so that added to something that wasn't, wouldn't be there in the past. But there was a depth, and it was also the quality of thinking of people. I'm not so surprised at that, but it was satisfying to see the level of interaction and conversation about the association, also about the field. But there was a lot. Depth and breadth was more than I expected. In part, maybe because we chose to take some things on that maybe others hadn't.
All right, good point. So for somebody looking to maybe one day aspire to be NIRSA president, is there any advice that you can give to them?
Yeah, I thought about this question. I think first of all, I think it's, listen, learn as much as you can from as many different people as you can. I learned as much from people who didn't do things well than I did from people who did things well. Don't miss the opportunity, even though maybe something isn't the way you think it should happen. Still, you want to understand what that looks like. And then, of course, now I decide not to do that. I do something different, but that's how I learned it. And to shy away from that, I think, is a lost opportunity. So that's one thing I would say, that, if you are going to represent the association, you need to understand it. And I think where some people may misstep is they think they know, and they step in and then they find out that, well, okay, you may know it where you are, but 2,000 miles away, there's something different. And so, be as broad as you can be in those interactions. I learned to surround myself with good people. That is, I built relationships with really good people, caring people, all of that, but also really good thinkers. And so when we got to the point of governance, well, I knew where those people were and who they were, and who I could trust to move forward with it. And what I didn't do is to say, here's the model. I'm going to tell you what I didn't know what the model was. I just knew we didn't have the right one. And so being open and willing to listen and accept is going to be really important. I think for anybody who wants to be in that position and be successful, I think that, I can speak my mind and I can be clear about my positions, but what I never want to do is harm relationships. I just think that's so important. You can't be successful without that. So it's important. I learned that, it's not about me. It's very important. It's not about me. It's about the association. It's about others. In some ways, the president is a facilitator. It moves, gets the initiatives or the conversation or whatever it is out there, and let that move where it needs to move. I think during my presidential year, I don't think I made more than 2 votes that made a decision of an outcome. I always step back because I was facilitating. So then it's a tie, and then of course I have to. But it was important for me that this, to allow that organic process to work. And so that I would advise people, if you're going to be in those positions, to be open. And the other thing if you want to be in a position like this, you need to be aware. You need to understand the association. You need to understand the field of collegiate recreation. You may not understand all of the the technical pieces around governance of association, those things you can learn. But I think generally understanding what is happening within our profession is important and would serve people well if they want to serve that way.
Wow, that was really good advice, Tom. Thanks.
Yeah.
So now shifting to after NIRSA President, what are your lasting responsibilities or opportunities that come for you after the President?
Well, I stayed engaged. I didn't necessarily see being president was the pinnacle of my professional or experience. I still continued on being involved. I was involved with the governance transition and implementation and all that. But I was involved with some other initiatives that I was asked to be involved in. Sustainability, the Commission on Sustainability. I was asked to chair that, and that was really good. There were good people on that, and I think we moved the association forward on that topic. It is part of our, sort of our goals of the association, and of course, we all know that's very important today. What's going on? I was asked to be on a regional alignment committee trying to determine if states wanted to move from region to region, what should we do about that? And so we worked on that for a couple of years. I'm a past president, so now I'm on the member network because of that role. And I've really enjoyed that, working with students. That's been,
You're doing great.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. But that's the work, we come into the work because of students, and so it's neat to see. It's neat to see how the new governance, the member network, is working, which is working well. So that's very, very satisfying. I'm engaged in the conferences and all that. When I retired, it was clear that I was not going to leave the association. I wasn't going to leave NIRSA. So I've done some. I do some consulting reviews of programs and that kind of thing, and that keeps me in touch with a lot of what's going on. So I've really enjoyed that. There's sort of other kinds of things that engage me with just conversation with our colleagues around the country, particularly with past presidents. Sometimes we're asked to weigh in on issues of the association because we have this perspective. And hopefully it's used as a perspective, not as a, well, I guess we got to do what those guys say because they're, that's not really the role. But I think giving perspective and other ideas is important. So I've been very engaged, involved. There's weeks where I'm in 3 or 4 Zoom calls. So more than I guess I thought would happen. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're still involved and staying busy.
Yeah.
All right. So time for our rapid fire questions.
Okay.
You just tell me what comes to mind. Do you have a standout or favorite NIRSA conference?
Oh boy, I suppose it would be in Austin, Texas, the year I was president. Those guys really know how to put on a conference, and it was really great fun. It was a great place to be. If you haven't been to Austin, it's worth visiting. But I suspect that's the best one. Maybe on one hand, Las Vegas. On another hand, that's not was not very good conference, but for other reasons it was.
All right. Do you have a favorite season of the year?
Yeah, I like spring. It's sort of the renewal.
Me too.
Yeah.
Go-to breakfast routine.
Sausage and eggs.
All right.
Is that what you mean? The food?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one.
I can only do that once a week.
Okay. Do you have a favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni and ham.
Pepperoni. Okay, I like pepperoni. And favorite city to travel to?
Well, I probably it's not a city. Williamsburg, Virginia. I thought that was a fascinating place.
All right.
Yeah.
Have to check that out.
Yeah.
And is there a favorite NIRSA social?
Well, I guess I have to say the Beaver Social.
Okay.
I don't think there's
Fair
the Beaver
enough.
Social any longer, but we always invite back, as many of our, people that we can.
Mhm.
But we always gave out a Beaver Award of the Year, and that was always pretty exciting to
Right.
recognize some alumni. Yeah,
Right. That's always fun.
yeah,
All right, Tom. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, sharing some wisdom about your experience and your involvement throughout the years. It means a lot.
good. Well, thank you, Mike. I enjoyed the conversation, and hope this gets posted and this works out well for you.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So to our guests, thank you to the people watching. Thanks for watching this latest episode of Elevate Your Path. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Take care and stay safe.
Okay. Thanks, Michael.